A study out of Harvard University that followed more than 100,000 people across 2 decades found something that should stop everyone in their tracks. The people who ate the most vegetables were dramatically less likely to develop cancer, heart disease, and diabetes than those who ate the least. Not slightly less likely, dramatically less likely. And the vegetables responsible for that protection were not rare imports or expensive supplements. They were ordinary, everyday vegetables available in any grocery store for just a few dollars. This video is going to walk through the top 8 vegetables that science has connected to fighting cancer and healing the body from within. More importantly, it will explain exactly how to prepare and eat each one so the body receives every possible benefit from them. Why vegetables matter so deeply. Before getting into the list itself, it helps to understand what is actually happening inside the body when disease begins to take hold. Because once that picture becomes clear, the power of these vegetables starts to make genuine sense. Every day, the body's cells face a kind of ongoing pressure from what researchers call free radicals. These are unstable molecules that form naturally during digestion, as well as from exposure to pollution, stress, and processed foods. Over time, when free radicals accumulate faster than the body can handle them, they begin damaging the material inside cells, including DNA. When DNA damage builds up in certain cells over years and decades, conditions become favorable for cancer to develop. The process does not happen overnight. It is slow, it is gradual, and it is influenced enormously by what a person eats throughout their life. The good news embedded in that fact is significant. It means that consistent, steady dietary choices in the right direction can shift the balance and give the body the tools it needs to protect itself. That is exactly what these 8 vegetables do. Each one brings a unique set of protective compounds to the table. Each one supports the body's natural defenses in a different way. And together, rotating through them across a regular week, they form one of the most powerful and accessible protective strategies available to anyone. The first vegetable on this list is one most people already recognize. What most people do not know is how extraordinarily well it performs inside the body. 1. Broccoli. Broccoli has been sitting on dinner plates for generations, and it has earned its reputation as a healthy food many times over. The full story of what broccoli does inside the human body, however, goes much deeper than most people realize. Inside broccoli, there is a natural compound called sulforaphane. When someone chews raw broccoli or lightly steams it, a biological reaction begins that releases sulforaphane and sets it free to move through the body. Researchers at Johns Hopkins University, who have studied this compound for decades, discovered that sulforaphane activates a set of protective enzymes in the liver. These enzymes work to identify and neutralize harmful substances before they can travel to healthy cells and cause damage. What makes sulforaphane especially notable is its effect on what researchers call cancer stem cells. These are a particularly stubborn category of cancer cells. They are the ones that tend to survive conventional treatment and can cause cancer to return after a period of remission. A study published in a major scientific journal found that sulforaphane reduced the number of these resilient cells by more than 60% in laboratory conditions. That is a significant finding, and it has been replicated across multiple research settings. Preparation makes a real difference with broccoli. Boiling it for a long time in water dissolves and drains away much of its protective value. Light steaming for 3 to 4 minutes is far more effective. Eating some of it raw is even better for releasing sulforaphane. There is also a preparation tip that very few people are aware of. Sprinkling a small amount of mustard seed powder over steamed broccoli can significantly increase how much sulforaphane the body absorbs. The natural enzymes in mustard seed and the compounds in broccoli work together in a way that amplifies the benefit considerably. Broccoli also delivers a generous supply of vitamin C, folate, and fiber, all of which support the immune system and keep the digestive tract functioning well. Eating it 3 or 4 times a week, whether as a side dish with olive oil tossed into a soup or eaten raw alongside a meal, gives the body a consistent supply of these protective tools. Once broccoli becomes a regular part of the weekly routine, the next vegetable on this list adds something completely different and equally powerful. It is one that humans have trusted for thousands of years across virtually every culture on Earth. 2. Garlic. Garlic has been trusted as a healing food by cultures across the world for thousands of years. Ancient Egyptians fed it to the workers who built the pyramids to keep them strong and healthy. Traditional Chinese medicine has relied on it for centuries. Modern science is now confirming what so many generations somehow already understood. The World Health Organization, one of the most careful and conservative health institutions in the world, actually includes fresh garlic in its dietary guidelines specifically because of its protective properties against disease. That kind of institutional endorsement is meaningful because the World Health Organization does not make such recommendations lightly. When a garlic clove is crushed or chopped, a compound called allicin is released. Research examining more than 27 separate studies found that people who regularly ate garlic had notably lower rates of colorectal cancer. Research connected to the National Cancer Institute also found associations between garlic consumption and reduced risk of stomach, esophageal, and breast cancers. The picture that emerges from this body of evidence is consistent and compelling. At the cellular level, compounds in garlic appear to trigger a process in abnormal cells that the body naturally uses to eliminate damaged ones. Healthy cells go through this self-elimination process as part of the body's routine maintenance. Cancer cells have found ways to avoid it and keep dividing without limit. The compounds in garlic seem to interfere with that avoidance and steer damaged cells back toward the body's natural cleanup process. There is one preparation step that makes an enormous difference and is worth remembering. After crushing or chopping a garlic clove, letting it rest at room temperature for about 10 minutes before any heat is applied allows the full conversion of beneficial compounds to complete. If garlic goes straight into a hot pan without that rest period, the heat destroys the enzyme responsible before it can finish its work. 10 minutes of waiting can meaningfully change the nutritional value of any meal that includes garlic. Garlic also supports heart health by helping to reduce cholesterol and lower blood pressure. It has natural antimicrobial properties that help the immune system respond to infections. And it enhances the flavor of virtually any savory dish, making it one of the simplest vegetables to include in daily cooking. 1 clove per day, prepared with that 10-minute rest, is a genuinely powerful addition to any diet. And from garlic, the next vegetable on this list moves things in a quieter direction, one that is working deep inside the body's most important systems at all times. 3. Spinach. Spinach is one of those vegetables that appears simple but is quietly doing an enormous amount of work inside the body. Most people think of it as a good source of iron and stop there. The full picture is far more interesting and far more protective. Spinach is exceptionally rich in folate, a nutrient the body needs to build and repair DNA properly. Every cell in the body contains DNA, and that DNA is continuously being read, copied, and maintained. Without steady folate in the diet, the body's ability to catch and fix small errors in that process becomes less reliable over time. Those uncorrected errors, accumulating slowly across years, are part of how conditions favorable to cancer can develop. Regular folate from food like spinach gives the body the raw material it needs to keep that repair system running well. Spinach also contains a group of protective antioxidants, including lutein, zeaxanthin, and beta-carotene. These compounds move through the body and neutralize free radicals continuously, acting like a steady cleanup crew catching damaging molecules before they reach healthy cells. Spinach delivers a particularly concentrated supply of these antioxidants, making it one of the most efficient vegetables for this protective function. Researchers in Japan discovered something especially striking about spinach. It contains 2 compounds that work together to interrupt the process cancer cells use to copy themselves and multiply. Without going into the long scientific names, what matters is the function. Spinach appears to slow or stop the machinery that cancer cells depend on for growth. That is a profoundly meaningful discovery that has held up across multiple research examinations. A large population study published in a prominent nutrition journal found that regular consumption of spinach and similar leafy greens was associated with a 40% lower risk of one specific type of cancer among women. Associations observed across large groups of real people over extended periods of time carry genuine weight in the research community. And a 40% reduction is a number that is very difficult to dismiss. Spinach is also one of the most versatile vegetables available. Lightly cooking it, such as sautéing it briefly in olive oil with garlic, increases the availability of certain nutrients like beta-carotene. Eating it raw in salads or blending it into smoothies preserves folate more effectively. Rotating between both approaches across the week captures the widest range of benefits from the same vegetable. A handful of raw spinach in a morning smoothie, some wilted into scrambled eggs, a small bowl alongside dinner. These simple additions accumulate into meaningful protection over time. And after spinach, the next vegetable on this list tends to genuinely surprise people when they hear how much it has to offer. 4. Beets. Beets are among the most misunderstood vegetables in any grocery store. Some people love them and buy them regularly. Many others walk right past them without much thought. After understanding what beets actually do inside the body, that second group tends to reconsider. Beets get their deep red color from a group of natural pigments called betalains. These pigments are not simply decorative. Research published in a peer-reviewed nutrition journal found that they actively interfered with the growth of tumor cells derived from colon, stomach, lung, and breast cancer in laboratory settings. A separate European study found that beet extract reduced the growth of prostate and breast cancer cells by more than 50% under laboratory conditions. Laboratory findings represent a starting point rather than a final verdict. And honest researchers are always careful to acknowledge that the human body is more complex than a laboratory dish. Still, the consistency of these results, alongside what larger population studies show about vegetable-rich diets, makes the case for beets very persuasive. One of the most well-documented benefits of beets involves blood pressure and circulation. Beets are naturally very high in nitrates, the kind found in vegetables rather than in processed meats. The body converts these nitrates into a molecule that causes blood vessels to relax and widen. A study from Queen Mary University of London found that drinking 1 cup of beet juice daily lowered blood pressure in people with high blood pressure by around 8 points on average. That reduction is comparable to what some medications achieve, which makes it a finding that the medical community has taken seriously. Lower blood pressure means better circulation throughout the entire body, and better circulation means more oxygen and more immune cells reaching every tissue simultaneously, including areas where abnormal cell growth might be beginning. The cardiovascular benefits and the cancer protective properties of beets are closely linked to each other in this way. Beets also support a process the body uses to manage how genes are turned on and off. This process is important in cancer prevention because one of the characteristics of cancer development involves the silencing of genes that normally suppress tumor growth. A compound in beets supports this gene management system and helps keep those protective genes active. Roasting beets with a little olive oil and sea salt brings out their natural sweetness in a way that surprises many first-time roasters. They can also be juiced, grated raw into salads, or blended into smoothies. Starting with a few servings per week can make a noticeable difference in how the body feels over time. Beets are remarkable on their own, and the next vegetable on this list shares some of beets' protective qualities while adding a completely new layer of benefit that reaches across the entire body. 5. Kale. Kale is also one of the most concentrated dietary sources of vitamin K available through everyday eating. Vitamin K plays an important role in regulating how cells grow and in maintaining the structural integrity of tissues throughout the body. Research has found connections between regular vitamin K intake and reduced risk of certain cancers, particularly those involving the digestive system. The antioxidant content of kale is extraordinary. It contains 2 flavonoids called quercetin and kaempferol that have been studied extensively in connection with cancer prevention. Quercetin, in particular, has appeared in multiple studies to interfere with several processes that cancer cells use to survive and spread. It appears to disrupt their energy supply, their ability to resist the body's immune response, and their capacity to establish themselves in new areas of the body. For older adults specifically, kale offers another benefit worth highlighting. It is exceptionally high in calcium, vitamin C, and vitamin A, all of which support bone strength, skin repair, and immune function at the same time. For anyone wanting to maintain energy and physical resilience as the years pass, kale delivers across multiple fronts simultaneously. The flavor of kale is more assertive than spinach and can take a little getting used to. Massaging raw kale leaves with a small amount of olive oil and fresh lemon juice for about 2 minutes softens the texture considerably and mellows the taste in a way that makes it much more approachable. Lightly sautéing it with garlic and olive oil is another method that most people find very easy to enjoy. Adding it to soups in the last few minutes of cooking is perhaps the simplest approach of all. 2 or 3 servings of kale per week, combined with the vegetables already discussed, creates a layered protective effect in the body that is greater than the sum of its parts. And as the next vegetable on this list got some of the most trustworthy protective foods, are also among the most familiar. 6. Carrots. Carrots are among the most universally eaten vegetables in the world. Almost everyone has eaten them at some point in their life, usually with the understanding that they are good for eyesight. That reputation is well earned, and the science behind carrots extends considerably further than most people know. The orange color of carrots comes from a compound called beta-carotene. When the body processes beta-carotene from food, it converts it into vitamin A, which is essential for immune function, skin health, and the maintenance of the protective linings of the lungs, digestive tract, and urinary system. These linings serve as the body's first line of defense against infection and against the very early stages of abnormal cell development. Keeping them healthy is a foundational part of disease prevention that most people never think about consciously, but benefit from every single day. Carrots also contain a lesser-known compound called falcarinol. Research from the University of Newcastle found that this compound reduced the rate of tumor development significantly in animal studies, and follow-up research has examined its effects on human cancer cells with similarly encouraging results. Falcarinol appears to work by triggering the same natural cell elimination process in cancer cells that healthy cells undergo as part of the body's normal maintenance system. Carrots deliver a combination of antioxidants, including alpha-carotene and lutein, alongside beta-carotene. These compounds working together appear to provide stronger protection than any single one of them would provide in isolation. This is one reason why whole carrots seem to offer more measurable benefit than beta-carotene supplements taken by themselves, a finding that serves as a broader reminder of why whole foods are so consistently valuable. One of the most practical facts about carrots is that cooking them actually increases the availability of beta-carotene compared to eating them raw. Lightly cooking carrots, whether by roasting, steaming, or adding them to soups and stews, breaks down the cell walls slightly and allows the body to access that compound more efficiently. Eating them alongside a small amount of healthy fat, such as olive oil, increases absorption further because beta-carotene is fat-soluble and travels through the body more effectively in the presence of fat. Carrots are also very high in fiber, which feeds the beneficial bacteria living in the gut and supports healthy digestion. A well-functioning digestive system plays a larger role in overall immunity than most people realize, and carrots contribute to that system in a meaningful and consistent way. Roasted carrots with olive oil, raw carrot sticks alongside a meal, or carrots added generously to soups and stews are all simple and satisfying ways to keep this vegetable in regular rotation. After carrots, the next vegetable on this list tends to be overlooked despite having one of the most impressive research profiles of any food in this entire video. 7. Red cabbage. Red cabbage sits quietly in the produce aisle and tends to be overlooked by most shoppers. The few people who do bring it home often use it primarily as a salad topper or garnish, without any real awareness of what it is doing for the body on a deeper level. The research surrounding red cabbage is genuinely impressive and makes a strong case for giving it a much more prominent place in the regular diet. Red cabbage gets its vivid color from a family of compounds called anthocyanins. These are among the most potent antioxidant substances identified in plant foods, and red cabbage contains them in exceptionally high concentrations. A single cup of raw red cabbage provides more antioxidant activity than many foods commonly celebrated for their antioxidant content, including several that receive far more attention in popular health media. Studies examining the compounds in red cabbage have found that they are particularly effective at protecting the cells lining the digestive tract from oxidative damage. This matters considerably because colorectal cancer is one of the most common cancers among older adults, and protecting the cells of the colon and digestive system from long-term damage is a meaningful part of prevention. Red cabbage also belongs to the cruciferous family alongside broccoli and kale. This means it contains glucosinolates, compounds the body processes into forms that assist the liver's detoxification pathways. Including red cabbage in a weekly diet that already features broccoli and kale creates multiple overlapping sources of these cruciferous compounds working across the week. Research has also found that red cabbage compounds reduce chronic low-level inflammation in the body. This kind of inflammation is different from the swelling that follows an injury and then resolves. It is a quiet, persistent state of immune activation that, sustained over years and decades, gradually damages tissues and creates conditions that many chronic diseases, including several types of cancer, tend to take advantage of. Reducing that background inflammation is one of the most important and underappreciated goals in long-term health maintenance. Red cabbage is also a genuinely excellent source of vitamin C. 1 cup of raw red cabbage contains more vitamin C than a small orange. Vitamin C supports immune function, helps the body absorb iron from plant foods, and plays a direct role in the production of collagen, which keeps skin, joints, and connective tissues healthy and resilient throughout the aging process. Thinly sliced raw red cabbage with a simple vinegar dressing is one of the most satisfying salads a person can make. It can be lightly fermented into sauerkraut, which adds beneficial bacteria for gut health. It can also be added to soups, cooked into stir-fries, or braised slowly with apples and a small amount of vinegar into a rich, sweet side dish that is deeply comforting. After red cabbage, the final vegetable on this list rounds everything out with a unique and specific contribution to the body's deeper protective systems, one that becomes increasingly valuable as a person ages. 8. Asparagus. Asparagus has a long and valued history as a food. Its distinctive look and flavor make it one of the more memorable items in any produce section, and it tends to divide people into those who love it and those who are still deciding. For anyone in the second group, the following information may well settle the matter once and for all. Asparagus is one of the most concentrated dietary sources of a compound called glutathione. Glutathione is sometimes described as the body's master antioxidant because of how central it is to nearly every internal detoxification process the body runs. It neutralizes free radicals, supports immune function, helps regenerate other antioxidants after they have done their work, and assists the liver in processing and removing toxic substances from the body. As people age, the body's natural glutathione levels tend to decline. This is one of the reasons older adults can become more vulnerable to the accumulative effects of oxidative stress and environmental exposure over time. Eating foods that help replenish and support glutathione levels, like asparagus, directly addresses this vulnerability in a way that is both practical and consistently available. Asparagus is also very high in folate, placing it alongside spinach as one of the best vegetable sources of this DNA protective nutrient. Regular folate intake is associated with meaningfully lower rates of colorectal cancer in population studies, and asparagus provides it in an easily absorbed and usable form. Beyond folate and glutathione, asparagus contains compounds called saponins, which research has found to have direct activity against tumor cells in laboratory settings. These compounds appear to disrupt the outer membranes of cancer cells in a way that leaves healthy cells unaffected, which is a particularly valuable property from a long-term disease prevention standpoint. For the heart and circulatory system, asparagus delivers potassium and folate together. This combination supports healthy blood pressure and helps reduce levels of a substance in the blood called homocysteine. Elevated homocysteine is associated with increased risk of heart disease and stroke, and dietary choices that keep it in check represent a meaningful form of cardiovascular protection that most people never consider. Asparagus is also a prebiotic food, meaning it provides the fuel that beneficial bacteria in the gut need to thrive. A healthy gut microbiome is increasingly recognized by researchers as a central player in immune regulation, inflammation control, and even mental clarity and energy levels. For older adults looking to maintain vitality and resilience, gut health is one of the most important systems to support, and asparagus contributes to it naturally with every serving. Roasting asparagus in a hot oven with olive oil and sea salt for 12 to 15 minutes produces a tender, slightly caramelized result that most people find deeply satisfying. It can also be steamed and served simply with lemon, folded into omelets, or added to pasta dishes with olive oil and garlic. After walking through 8 vegetables, the natural question that arises is where to begin. The answer is simpler than the list might make it seem. The goal is not to eat all 8 of these vegetables every single day. That would be overwhelming and unnecessary. The goal is to rotate them through the week in a way that gradually becomes comfortable and then automatic. A practical rhythm might look something like this. Broccoli 2 or 3 times a week, lightly steamed with olive oil or eaten raw with a touch of mustard seed powder. Garlic crushed and rested for 10 minutes before cooking, worked into almost any savory dish. Spinach in a morning smoothie, or sautéed gently with garlic as a side. Beets roasted or juiced a few times a week. Kale massaged with olive oil and lemon or sautéed lightly alongside other greens. Carrots added to soups, eaten as a snack with a little olive oil, or roasted in the oven. Red cabbage thinly sliced into salads or braised slowly on the stove. Asparagus roasted as a side dish several times across the week. None of these preparations requires advanced cooking skills. None of these vegetables costs more than a few dollars per serving. Each one brings something the others do not, and together they provide the body with a wide, overlapping range of protective compounds, working across multiple systems simultaneously. The research behind these 8 vegetables comes from major universities and peer-reviewed journals that have spent decades studying the relationship between diet and disease. The finding that runs consistently through all of it is that the quality of what a person eats over years and decades is one of the strongest predictors of whether they develop cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and other chronic conditions. These are not conditions that arrive without warning or cause. They are conditions that develop slowly, influenced every step of the way by the daily choices a person makes at the dinner table. The American Cancer Society estimates that roughly 18% of all cancers in the United States are related to poor diet and physical inactivity. That number represents an enormous amount of preventable suffering, and it also represents an enormous amount of possibility, because preventable means changeable. The human body has a remarkable capacity to protect and repair itself. These processes run continuously and quietly around the clock. Giving the body what it needs through food like these 8 vegetables is one of the most meaningful contributions anyone can make to their own health and longevity, regardless of age or current health status. Starting this week, adding 1 or 2 of these vegetables to the daily plate is a genuinely powerful step. Small, consistent choices accumulate into large outcomes over time. Every plate is an opportunity. Every meal sends a message to the body's cells about how they should function and how well they should be protected. These 8 vegetables are among the most powerful messengers available anywhere, and the grocery store has them waiting right now.